Listening Fill in the Blanks.
Let's start.
Some wells are vast, open craters, with hundreds of steps paving each sloping side, often in tiers. Others are more elaborate, with long stepped passages leading to the water via several stories built from stone and supported by pillars. They also included pavilions that sheltered visitors from the relentless heat. But perhaps the most impressive features are the intricate decorative sculptures that embellish many step wells, showing activities from fighting and dancing to everyday acts such as women combing their hair and churning butter.
Toxic substances accumulate in higher concentrations as they move up the food chain because orcas are the top predator in the ocean and are at the top of several different food chains in the environment. They tend to be more affected by pollutants than other sea creatures. Examinations of stranded killer whales have shown some extremely high levels of lead, mercury, and polychlorinated hydrocarbons. Abandoned marine toxic waste dumps, and present levels of industrial and human refuse pollution of the inland waters probably presents the most serious threat to the continued existence of this orca population. Unfortunately, the total remedy to this huge problem would be broad societal changes on many fronts.
The challenge for educators and policymakers is to shape the evolution of national identity in such a way that the rights of all citizens, including school children, are respected, and the cultural, linguistic, and economic resources of the nation are maximized. To waste the resources of the nation by discouraging children from developing their mother tongues is quite simply unintelligent from the point of view of national self-interest. A first step in providing an appropriate education for culturally and linguistically diverse children is to examine what the existing research says about the role of children's mother tongues in their educational development.
It baffles many people as to why they need to spend such vast amounts when there are perfectly acceptable state schools that don't cost a penny. One father gave his reasoning for sending his son to a private school: if my son gets a 5% better chance of going to university, then that may be the difference between success and failure. It would seem to the average person that a £50,000 minimum total cost of second-level education is a lot to pay for a 5% better chance. Most children, given the choice, would take the money and spend it on more enjoyable things rather than shelling it out on a school that is too posh for its own good.
One of the things that your money buys, which is difficult to quantify, is the appearance of the school, the way it looks. Most private schools that you will find are set in beautiful, well-kept country houses, with extensive grounds and gardens. In comparison with the state schools, they tend to look like castles, with the worst of the state schools looking like public lavatories, perhaps even tiled or covered in graffiti. Many may even have an architectural design that is just about on the level of an industrial shed. And the cork oak itself is an extraordinary tree. Its bark grows up to 20 centimeters in thickness, insulating the tree like a coat wrapped around the trunk, and branches and keeping the inside at a constant 20 degrees C all year round. Developed most probably as a defense against forest fires, the bark of the cork oak has a particular cellular structure, with about 40 million cells per cubic centimeter, that technology has never succeeded in replicating. The cells are filled with air, which is why cork is so buoyant. It also has an elasticity that means you can squash it and watch it spring back to its original size and shape when you release the pressure. All this had nothing to do with superiority or inferiority of biosystems, in any absolute sense. It has to do with environmental contrasts. Amerindians were accustomed to living in one particular kind of environment, Europeans and Africans in another. When the Old World peoples came to America, they brought with them all their plants, animals, and germs. creating a kind of environment to which they were already adapted, and so they increased in number. Amerindians had not adapted to European germs, and so initially their numbers plunged. That decline has reversed in our time as Amerindian populations have adapted to the Old World's environmental influence. Cork harvesting is a very specialized profession. No mechanical means of stripping cork bark has been invented, so the job is done by teams of highly skilled workers. First, they make vertical cuts down the bark using small sharp axes, then lever it away in pieces as large as they can manage. The most skillful cork strippers prize away a semicircular husk that runs the length of the trunk from just above ground level to the first branches. It is then dried on the ground for about 4 months, before being taken to factories, where it is boiled to kill any insects that might remain in the cork.
Martin Luther King was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the son of the Reverend Martin Luther King, Sr., and Alberta Williams King. He had an older sister, Willie Christine King, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King. Growing up in Atlanta, King attended Booker T. Washington High School. He skipped 9th and 12th grade, and entered Morehouse College at age 15 without formally graduating from high school. From the time that Martin was born, he knew that black people and white people had different rights in certain parts of America.
Returning to the South to become pastor of a Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama, King first achieved national renown when he helped mobilize the black boycott of the Montgomery bus system in 1955. This was organized after Rosa Parks, a black woman, refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man in the segregated South. Black people could only sit at the back of the bus. The 382-day boycott led the bus company to change its regulations, and the Supreme Court declared such segregation unconstitutional.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further